Donald Walsch, what a name, what a great leader in the field of what really makes a difference in the world today and what the world really needs, and that is spirituality. We have been on a path of great interest in the physicality and the materiality and the things that happen and how much we own on a surface level. And we have a great leader in the field of owning and being on the spiritual level and dealing with reality from its profound, most profound level, which is most true and most available to us in our consciousness, in our awareness. Neale Donald Walsch, 40 books, amazing. So many of them New York Times bestseller. One of them 137 weeks on New York Times. And it's fabulous to see that your last book is out also. You have created connections with people. You have created a site. You have created Connect, CWG Connect, which is can be reached at cwgconnect.com. And he can be reached as neildonaldwalsh.com also. Your last book, The God Solution, offers unifying values in life, where we take spirituality to be all-inclusive, inclusive of all beliefs, all systems, with a common denominator. So it's such a joy to think with you. I have myself spent my life looking for answers, and I came to some conclusions that I wrote in a book, which is called Consciousness is All There Is. And I find that I meet so much of your thoughts and agree with so much of your depth of insight and connectedness with true reality. Thank you for being with us. It's a joy to have you.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction, my friend. I'm going to argue with only one part of it, if I might be allowed. I would never define myself as a leader of anything. I simply took dictation in my experience that I've called Conversations with God, and then I shared what I was given to share with a few people. But you know, I would be a leader if I was living the messages that I've been given. There are such leaders in the world, and there have been such leaders throughout history. But honestly, I'm not one of them. I'm on the path. I'm making the attempt to do it. I'm not nearly complete with that journey. So I wouldn't call myself a leader, but I would call myself a messenger. I'll give myself that. And so I've been a messenger to bring the message to all those who might find their way to it. And I might say to bring the message to myself. I'm still bringing the message to myself, and I'm still hoping that one day, before I leave here, I could get closer to my ultimate destination. So with that caveat, so that everyone agrees, I don't want anyone to think that I think that I'm a leader. And when someone introduces me that way, I've got to go, whoa, you must be talking about someone else. Because no one who knows me personally would call me a leader in this field, but they may say he's a good trier. I'm trying, and every day I try my best.
This is wonderful. You carry a torch, you carry a light, which is beautiful. And when there is light, there is the disappearance of darkness. And without wanting to lead, as you so humbly and sweetly say, people listen and discuss points. And whenever there is inspiration, we can see messenger or leader. It's an individual perspective. Your perspective is more on going on the path, and whatever light comes to you, you are sharing it. Let's look at you as you like, and people can see you as a leader also, but let's leave that behind. Let us talk about the most important part of the essence, what I see as the essence of your search, your message, the message that you receive from within, from your intuition, because you surrender all this to the divine, which is beautiful. And all of this is about, let's talk about spirituality. It's not all about spirituality, it depends on how we define it. Let's start with spirituality, because this is something that is at the heart of what is non-material, non-physical. And sometimes people confuse spirituality with religion. Would you like to share with us what spirituality is, how you see it?
Well, I think you've touched on it, actually. I think that spirituality is the essential element of life that has very little to do with our physical reality. I think that it is a word that we use to describe an aspect of life that deals with virtually non-physical elements of our daily experience. So that which is non-physical. If I could use an example, the word love is such an overused word in human language. But love is, when one thinks of love, one thinks of ways to express love, but the topic of love itself is not a physical topic. There's no jar we can put on a shelf, or picture we can put on the wall, or a book that we can put in a library that we would call love. They can talk about love, they can demonstrate love, but that's not love. It's a book. It's a shelf. It's a picture. So we have words are the least reliable form of communication, in my understanding. And I was told that in my conversation with God. Words are the least reliable form of communication. Feelings are the language of the soul. I believe that the greatest mistake that most human beings have made is that we think we are this. Many people think that this is who I am. I'm my body. Or maybe I'm my mind. Or maybe I'm a combination of my body and my mind. But what I was told in my conversation with God is, Neale, you are neither your body nor are you your mind, and you're not even the combination. These are simply tools. These are simply pieces of equipment that who you really are use. And who you really are is a spiritual entity. Neale, you are a spiritual being. Shall we use the word soul, S-O-U-L in English? You are a soul. You are an individuation of the only thing there is. You are an individual expression of that which some human beings call divinity, or the essential essence, or if you please, in some languages, God, or Allah, or Brahman, or Yahweh, or 1,000 different names that we use to describe the single essence that there is. And that single essence could be defined, in my understanding, by 2 words: pure love. Now, you know what, my friend? If I could just go on for a little bit longer, you're going to regret asking me a question, because, I take a 30-second question and give a 25-minute answer.
It's a delight. It's the joy to be with you. Please go ahead.
Because the questions are not simple. They're really complex questions. And the answers truly could change humanity's experience of itself. So whenever I say in front of an audience, in person, that the definition of God is pure love, as I understand it, that which we call God, the essential essence of the universe, is what we experience as pure love. Somebody inevitably gets up in the back of the room and says, "Oh, Neale, have I been listening to you for 7 minutes for you to tell me something we all already know, that God is love?" Everyone agrees that God, even the world's differing religions, they might have different doctrines, but they all agree that God is love. So is that what you came to reveal to us? And I have to say to my audience, whoa, 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 wait a minute. That's not what I said. I did not say that God is love. I said that God is pure love. Now my friend will say, okay, what's the difference? The difference is that pure love needs, expects, requires, and demands nothing in return. Can we believe? Dare we believe in a supreme being? Dare we believe in a God who needs, expects, requires, and demands nothing in return for the pure love that God bestows upon us? Because if we were to believe in such a God, we would be embracing a revolution in humanity's 4,723 religions. Because virtually all of those religions say, yes, God is a loving being. God is very loving, of course. But if you don't obey God's commands, if you don't do what God requires, and if you don't do it in precisely the right way, if you don't belong to the correct religion, and by the way, there's only one correct religion out of the 4,000 religions on the earth, and if you don't belong to the right religion, I'm sorry, God says, but I'm going to have to send you to everlasting damnation, or you will suffer beyond anything you could possibly imagine, because my demonstration of my love for you is to tell you, you do what I require or you're going to hell. Now, why is this important? Is this simply just a theological point of difference of opinion, perhaps, among some people? No, my friends, it's worse than that. Because billions of people believe that the best thing we could do on this planet is to imitate God, is to act God-like, or to be divine, if you please, to accept all the qualities of divinity within us. But if we were to act as God acts with us, then we would also be judging, condemning, and punishing to those who do not do what we require and what we need and what we request. Because if what's good enough for God is good enough for us. So in fact, we've devised a way of being with each other on this planet, which says, you know what, I love you. But if you don't do what I need, if you don't give me what I require, if you don't follow my commands, I will create a hell in your life that you wouldn't believe. In fact, I may even have to kill you. We have had armed conflict on this planet for all but 5% of recorded history. And no one is asking why. Why? Is it possible, just possible, that there's something we don't fully understand here about God, about life, and about who we are? The understanding of which could change everything. And so I've been traveling the world asking that simple question. Might there be something we're not fully understanding here? Dare we suggest that God is, in fact, pure love? Folks, we can't even love the person on the pillow next to us that way, much less believe in a God who loves us that way. And when I said to God, you know, this is too good to be true. It's too good to be true. Did you want nothing from me in return for the love you give me? When I said that to God, she answered, Neale, if God can't be too good to be true, who can? So that's my 14-minute answer to your 14-second question.
That's delightful. Love assumes more than one person. So there is the lover and the person loved, and the love is the link between the two.
I'm not sure that I agree with you. With permission,
Yes,
I th-
I'm raising this point to see how you look at this in terms of duality or unity.
I don't think that love requires another person. I think it's possible for me to love myself. And when I look in the mirror in the morning, I think it's possible for me to say, Neale, I love you. Or even more directly, I love me. And I think that what God, the Supreme Being, is essentially saying, if we could put it in such simple terms, is I love me. And I love every aspect of me. And you are an aspect of me. You are each an individuation of who I am. So it's not me loving something else. It's me loving the part of me that is you. It's really quite simple. There is no
That's
separation.
that's beautiful. In my research and my study, I put it in terms of consciousness because we have to be aware, there has to be an awareness, a consciousness, in order to experience anything, including the experience of love. So that's why my book has been called Consciousness is All There Is, and that love is actually, in essence, a part of this consciousness in a way that connects consciousness with itself on the oneness level of pure being, pure love, pure consciousness, and on the level of the multiplicity of the appearance of that one consciousness as many. And therefore, I really join your thinking. It's just a question of maybe emphasis on awareness, on consciousness, and having it have a principal value within it, which is that value of love, which is the value of actually projecting a subject onto an object in a sense, or a subject onto oneself. Therefore, there is a reflective element within it, you know. So when you say I love myself, so I am who I am, and my consciousness reflects on itself and sees itself as an object of love. And so what do you feel about that?
I think that every single word you've just spoken is ultimate reality. And I think that I do not disagree with one syllable of what you've just said. And I would give anything if every person in the world could hear what you've just shared and could find a way to join in the expression of it. Consciousness is all there is. There is nothing else. That is, I agree with you, and I agree with the title of your book completely. The question becomes, what could cause every sentient being on this planet, to say nothing of every sentient being in the cosmos, what could cause every sentient being to step into and experience the highest level of their own consciousness? What could cause that to occur? That becomes the question of the day. And I think that people like you, who keep on putting this message out there, who invite people to embrace possibilities they may never have even thought of, I think it's people like you that we need more of on this planet. God, bring us more Tonys.
That's so kind of you, and so loving and caring and humble. I think we have really exactly the same perspective. The difference, I would just have to highlight difference of wording, not difference of content or difference of essence in any way. And the difference is just almost semantic, but on a strategic level, if you like. And just to confess to you in a simple way, when there is the term love that comes and God that comes, there is a portion of the people that will feel threatened in their core beliefs that they have been subject to since they were children, and what gives them sense of belonging to a community that protects them, and therefore the perception of their self as being part of a certain community, and also the fear that is created in terms of some points that you have raised, that if I don't follow my dogma and my beliefs, I'm going to be punished, and I'm going to go to hell, and I'm going this and that. And so, whereas we have the same understanding, I have tried in my presentations and my talking to avoid raising those sensitivities and just speaking about consciousness as being on a spectrum from limited perspectives of a molecule, an atom, and all of that, but that is also consciousness. That is also, in your terminology, God, or an expression of God, but I call it an expression of consciousness. And all the way to humans and their ability to experience higher values, and also such great souls that are able to even talk to the unbounded ocean of being, which is pure being, which is pure love, which is pure consciousness, which is unbounded consciousness. And so in that whole range of possibilities, whereas the concept of godliness or God can raise these little bit of fears or sensitivities, I have thought in terms of consciousness and keep it at the level where people can say, yes, I have consciousness, I am conscious. And when people ask me about God, I say, well, God must be conscious. And in the range of this consciousness, imagine the highest possible consciousness that knows everything, is everything. And then you can say, well, that's God's consciousness. And people then would feel, yes, you know, if there is small consciousness in a rat and a cat and a tree, and higher consciousness maybe in an evolved human being, we can imagine this extending to the highest value and see what is the ultimate possibility of consciousness. And we can say, well, that is the divine consciousness. How do you feel about that?
I feel wonderful about that, because you have found a word that avoids the, if I could use the expression, the dynamite word of God, because you're right. You know, there are some people who have a real pushback to the word God. And, you know, and some people can't even say the word. I mean, because of what our culture has done with the thought of a supreme being. So you've done something that people have been trying to do for centuries. You have found another way to express. You have found another word to use that refers to the same essential experience of total, pure, needless love. Consciousness is a wonderful word, and very few people can disagree with it. So you have found a way to express our ultimate reality using languages and using articulations that people have a very little reason to disagree with. And of course, the Conversations with God books say essentially the same thing. We're talking about consciousness, awareness, which creates perspective, and perspective creates perception, and perception creates belief, and belief creates behavior, and behavior creates experience.
Beautiful. Beautiful. That's supreme. It's so wonderful. I'm so delighted to be in touch with somebody who is so close to God, obviously. and talking to God. How does it happen on the experience level? Is this what you would call intuition? And you have talked about intuition, of course, and you have encouraged people to go deep within and find that intuition, which in fact is, in essence, when one is true to oneself, when one is simple, when one is candid, when one is true in heart and mind, we can say what they hear, what is coming to them on that level. Can you say that we all kind of speaking to God in that way?
There's no question in my mind, Tony. If I may call you Tony, I
Of
know I should
course.
call you Dr. Nader, but
No, Tony is perfect.
well, the fact is, the truth is that Tony is perfect. That is the truth. And so, but let me share with you my idea. Yes, all of us, I was told in my conversations with God, Neale, all of us are having conversations with God all the time. You're simply calling it something else. You use the word intuition. Some people like to call it women's intuition. It's women's intuition. Or we may call the messages that we receive, we may call it, a sudden inspiration, or it was a brilliant insight, or whatever words we want to use to describe the same experience, which is an experience that we do an experience in which we are not calling from something outside of ourselves, but calling upon something inside of ourselves.
Beautiful.
And because it resides within every sentient being in the cosmos. And we simply call it forth. And you can give it any name you want to give it, but it's the same experience. And it's, and it can happen in 1,000 different ways. It can be, the simple, an overheard expression in the coffee shop that someone else says, or the words on the billboard as we're driving down the road and we turn the corner and there are 12 words on the billboard that directly answer a question we've been thinking about for 3 weeks. And there's the answer right in front of us. Or it could even be a fragrance or a vision that we see or a dream that we have. So I'm suggesting that this aspect of consciousness can appear in our experience in 1,000 different ways across 1,000,000 moments in our lifetime. I'll give you an example. I talked about a fragrance a minute ago. I was in the men's department of a major department store a few years ago, excuse me, and I was wanting to pick out a sport coat, a nice coat that I could wear. And I was smelling gardenia, the fragrance of gardenia. And I said to the salesperson, is the department store perfume counter nearby? He said, no, it's downstairs on the floor below us. I said, really? I'm smelling gardenia here in the men's department. Where's that coming from? He said, I don't smell that. I don't know where it's coming from. And then I remembered, wait a minute. Gardenia is my mother's favorite fragrance. It's her signature perfume.
Beautiful.
So I raced home and I picked up the telephone because in those days we didn't have these things. We didn't have, but I did have a landline, and I picked up the phone and I called my mother. And I said, I don't know why, but I'm smelling your perfume. Maybe I should be calling you. And my mother said, oh, sweetheart, how sweet of you to call me and talk to me. It wasn't like I was calling my mother every week of my life. I was 50 years old. So I wasn't, but my mother and I had the most wonderful, important conversation that the two of us had in a very long time. And Tony, 3 weeks later, my mother passed.
Wow.
If I hadn't called her spontaneously for no apparent reason, I would have missed that glorious, sacred conversation that we shared. So, how does God talk to us? How does the universe communicate with us? How is consciousness experienced? Sometimes it's a fragrance. Sometimes it's the lyrics of the next song you hear on the radio. Sometimes it's the chance utterance of a friend you just happen to run into on the street. And sometimes, in fact, sometimes indeed, it is words that come to your mind. Words that could fill an entire book.
Beautiful. It's so beautiful, so touching. When you were describing this, I felt that when you talk to your mother, you were actually talking to God in the form of your mother. And it's really so beautiful. You know, God gave you that one shape of him, one aspect of her or him, and of it, you know, of them, which is non-denominational kind of entity, but in the form of your mother. There is so much beauty in all of that. I just wanted to say that this term consciousness is not my invention. I have learned it from my teacher, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who highlighted and who was the greatest expert in consciousness and promoted consciousness and asked me to continue to bring that knowledge to life and to reality. And it also reminded me of that tradition from which this comes, that consciousness is all there is and consciousness is all permeating. And there is kind of a song that they have where they say about God, and in this case, God, given a feminine kind of quality. So that God, which is the supreme, but with a feminine quality, because you also mentioned that. And in that song, in that chant, they say to God or to her as God, you are beauty in the beautiful. You are fragrance in that which smells good. You are love in the loving. So it's so beautiful that when you look at these aspects, you are peace in the peaceful, you are strength in the strong, and like that it goes on. And it's really so beautiful to be able to see God everywhere. And when you are on that level, to actually be talking to God all the time. I feel like I'm talking to God now, I'm talking to you. And this level of simplicity and spirituality and innocence and truthfulness is, in my mind, in my feeling, another delightful moment with God in the form of Neale Donald Walsch. It's such a joy.
The challenge for humanity is, however, of course, I love everything you've just said, but the challenge for humanity is, can we see that divinity in those with whom we disagree?
Beautiful.
Because if we only see that level of divinity in those with whom we agree, then we have missed the entire point. We have missed
Beautiful.
the mission. We have missed the message. And the challenge we have facing us now as a species, the human species, is really quite simple. Can we see the divine in that with which we disagree?
Beautiful, beautiful. Yes, can we remove the filters that are preventing us from seeing because we have been prejudiced or predisposed or pre-taught some things that create colors on our glasses, and if they are yellow, that make us see the white as yellow, and if I red, that makes us see as red, and not recognize the neighbor who is wearing red glasses and we are wearing yellow glasses, and we disagree with them and fight with them because they say the paper is red and while we see it as yellow. So there is an actual transformation that needs to happen physically, mentally, clarity of mind, in order to be able to actually see reality without those filters or predispositions of prejudice, I would say, or stress or fears or strains. And so we need to clear all of this up so that we can actually see the reality as you're able to see it in such a beautiful way.
And so that we can disagree agreeably.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Because highly evolved beings disagree agreeably.
Beautiful.
And then they find a way to each other without having their disagreements obstruct their pathway to each other.
Yeah. And sometimes, like a dialectic kind of, find out of two things that appear so different, something new that helps to grow and evolve. And this brings us to the meaning of why we are here, the meaning of life. And would we say, I don't want to say what I feel, I want to hear from you, that it is actually ultimately discovering the divine and knowing the divine. And if we are on the right path, we will ultimately see the wholeness of life, experience it fully. And that is what's always pushing us for more, because the divine is more than the most. And that's why people are driven towards more and more in life. But however, they go towards more and more through the specific values of their sensory perception, and they believe by getting more here and getting more there that they are going to be more, whereas what they really want is to be more. And to be more is, I repeat your words, which you said a few minutes ago, is to look inside, because inside is more than the most, as many religious and all religions have said, find the kingdom of heaven within you. I am closer to you than your jugular vein, as it said in different traditions. Humans were created in the image of God, and all of that. So I'm saying this because our practical technology to actually help on that path is what we call transcendental meditation. And transcendental meditation means to go beyond the surface value, go within, find the ocean of love, the ocean of being, the ocean of consciousness, which we actually call pure consciousness within, and then come out and see it outside, because on that platform, you have cleared a little bit your glasses from their filters and their colors, and you are now more prepared to actually embrace reality in its most truthful level, that everything is that ocean of being. Everything is that consciousness. Everything is myself.
I'm going to offer a point of view about the purpose of life, which is a topic you brought up a moment or two ago. I do not experience that the purpose of life is having anything to do with discovery. I do not believe it's about discovering divinity or discovering who we are. I think life is not, in my understanding, life is not a school. God did not send us down here and say to us, it would have been better if I told you everything you need to know, but I didn't tell you everything you need to know, so I certainly hope you can learn it fast enough. God bless you if you don't learn it fast enough, because life is a school, so you better learn. No, that's not the God in which I believe. I think the God in whom I believe says, well, let me give you an example. What God said to me. God said to me, Neale, is there a tree anywhere near you? I said, yes. In fact, there's a huge tree right outside my front window of my house. It's a beautiful, beautiful 35, 40-foot tree. It's a huge tree. It's a beautiful tree. And God said, wonderful. What has the tree learned from the time it was a seedling, a seed no bigger than your fingernail? I said, well, it hasn't learned anything. Everything it needed to know was in the seed. It just grew into what was in the seed at the beginning. It wasn't a process of learning. It was a process of growing into what it already knew. And God said to me, and so, Neale, if I so loved the tree, would I not all the more love you? Everything you needed to know is already within you. You have nothing to learn. You have merely to remember, merely to express who you really are. So, Neale, go forth into the world and share with those whose lives you touch that the purpose of life is not to learn anything. The purpose of life is to remember. That is to become a member once again of the body of God. To remember and then to demonstrate, to express and to experience who you really are. An individuation of me, an individual expression, not separate in any way. And I said to God, well, it feels like I'm separate. I mean, for a while in my life, I felt separate from you. And God said, son, hold up your hand. So I held up my hand, and God said, how many fingers are on your hand? I said, well, I have 5 fingers on my hand. And God said, are they separate from each other? I said, well, no, they're not exactly separate from each other. They're all part of the same hand, but they're different from each other. Each finger is different from the other finger. And God said, oh, so individuation does not mean separation. I see. So, Neale, you are all fingers on the hands of God. If you want a metaphor, it's really quite simple. Individuation is not separation. But people think that because we're individual, that we're separate, and they think that if they embrace the notion of unity, that they lose their individuation. And that's not true. And so what I've been sharing with people around the world is, do not be frightened of losing your individual expression, but simply embrace the notion that there is no separation. Separation from the divine is impossible because the divine is all there is.
Beautiful, beautiful. I
could,
cannot
of course, I could, of course, totally be wrong about all of this.
You're absolutely along the lines. Maybe I used the wrong word in discovering, which should have been probably uncovering, which means removing the hiding that prevents us from seeing. And that would be the more correct word. And in fact, in the tradition from which I have learned, there is something called chandas in Sanskrit, which means that which hides. And that discovering reality is to removing the hiding. That's why I use the term filters on our glasses and uncovering and discovering what is already inside. And it really is in the heart of that knowledge, because, for example, in the Bhagavad Gita, I'm sure you're very familiar also maybe with that literature, where there is a warrior on the battlefield, and he's being taught by God, to go ahead and do that duty and uncover. And there is a whole teaching that goes along. And the divine, in this case, it's called Krishna. It's different name, as you mentioned, could have been God Yahweh, could have been Allah or whatever. It's just the name in that tradition. And is guiding him to be established in the self. Go back to yourself and then act, and then your action will be in tune with the laws of nature, which are the will of God in a sense, as we have in a natural way. And he keeps teaching him to go back to the self, go back to the self. And the whole thing goes for 18 chapters, thousands of verses and all of that, training him and teaching him. And at the end, he doesn't say, now I understand, or he doesn't say, now I know, or now you enlighten me, or anything. He said, I regained my memory. Now I regained my memory. And it's so beautiful what you said it. So this is, of course, it means you're really talking to God, Neale. It's not that we have a doubt, but you're so much on the track, on the reality of knowledge and experience by what they call rishis, and those who have had deep, profound experiences and deep introspection, uncovering who they are. It really is very profound. And in my book, Consciousness is All There Is, I also actually say that we are uncovering, we are finding who we truly are, and finding who everything else is also. And we call this unity consciousness. We have different stages of consciousness: transcendental consciousness, where you discover yourself to be that ocean; then cosmic consciousness, where this is stabilized in you; and then actually God consciousness. You don't have the consciousness of God, but you have the experience of the beauty of God, of the wholeness of God, and the omnipresence of God. And ultimately, the last stage is what we call unity consciousness, when you also know you are that thing and everything else is also that thing. And that is supreme love, because supreme love is supreme unity, where the other is also yourself. And you take the other completely as yourself without having to even think about it. So it's really, really wonderful to be speaking with you.
Thank you. I feel the same way. As I listen to what you're sharing, you used the word ocean a moment ago, and that reminds me of what God said to me in my conversations. He said, Neale, if you need a metaphor that could help you understand all of this, consider yourself to be a wave on the ocean of divinity. Have you ever been on an ocean liner? God said to me. I said, well, of course I have. God said, have you ever been out there on the deck of an ocean liner and seen the waves on the ocean? I said, yes, I've had the blessing of seeing a wave on the ocean. And God said, when the wave arises from the ocean, is it separate from the ocean? No. Is it something other than the ocean? No. It's a simple arising of the ocean in individual expression, in beautiful, powerful individual expression. And when that individual expression is complete, the ocean does what? Recedes. The wave recedes back into the ocean. And the ocean embraces the wave once again as what it always was, an inseparable part of the ocean itself. So what God said to me was, now that you understand that you are a wave on the ocean of divinity, Neale, go out there in the world and make waves.
Very soothing waves, very nourishing waves, very holistic waves, where the ocean is never forgotten, even as the wave is moving and blessing everyone. So beautiful. Thank you for sharing these thoughts and for being with us. It's so wonderful.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for the invitation. And thank you for the wonderful work that you are doing. My dear friends, Consciousness is All There Is. Pick up the book, read it from cover to cover, underline the statements that make sense to you, and remember who you really are.
And know that this is the God solution, and that is also available in such a wonderful way in one of the last books that has been printed. But we look forward to more from our dear Neale Donald Walsch.
Let me share something with you toward the end, if I might.
Anyone
who wants a digital copy of the God Solution, I will send it to you at no charge, absolutely free. Just send me a note to Neale at neale.donaldwalsh.com and say, Neale, send me your book, and I will upload it to you by return email within 24 hours, at no cost whatsoever, because I want you to consider the possibility that there's something we don't fully understand here, the understanding of which could change everything. So the book is yours for free. Just ask for it.
What a wonderful divine gift in so many ways of expressing it as divine gift. And thank you so much. Really, we need spirituality. The world needs it today, needs to understand that value of life, which is the true value of life, not something that we're creating or adding or trying to shift into because it's pragmatic and practical, but because it is the truth. And when one is on the path of truth, one is on the path of fulfillment and peace and harmony. And that is really our hope and expectations and desire. And that's what I guess I can put myself humbly with Neale and say that consciousness is all there is. This is the God solution. And that it'll make a difference for individual life or for the life also of society when together we can come to that platform of being and understanding and living that reality in a spontaneous, natural way, as is beautifully seen in Neale's talk and expressions and sincere feelings and candid sharing of his talks with the divine. Thank you, Neale, very much. It's really a delight to have been with you, and I look forward for meeting you in person and somewhat discussing more and spreading that knowledge together more.
Thank you, Tony. Goodbye for now.